this is Tommy John, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
You can put it on the board. Yes!
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDI prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, of course, the king of all those cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes, USDA prime, yes, Wagyu. If you don't know what that is, you better check it out. That's the best in the business. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call. Find out what's for dinner. 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935 for UppercutChops.com. Of course, a nice round of applause for Uppercut Chops. And, of course, a big welcome in everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast, as well as everybody watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, and WOW Cable Television, plus Hotel TV in 500,000 rooms from coast to coast. And, you know, we think about the NFL seems to be a year-round season. I'm not really sure if there's another sport that really is year-round, but the NFL, it just seems like every day of the year there's something in the news about the National Football League, despite the fact they play 17 regular season games now versus baseball 162, and hockey they play 82 games, and basketball they play 82 games. But end of day, what do you have? Well, it seems like the NFL just won't go away even in the summer when they're supposed to be on vacation. So that said, well, let's think about the idea of the best moves from each team in the offseason. So that said, Bears, Giants score big with offseason trades. Now, this is according to CBS. And, of course, we want to make sure we give them their props, of course, because we are carried on CBS sports affiliates across the country in different locations as well. But the big question is, what was the best move by each NFC team this offseason? So, according to CBS, they say the NFC appeared to be the San Francisco 49ers Invitational last season. Yet the champions of the conference were challenged in the postseason by the Packers and the Lions, while the 49ers were just a play away from winning a Super Bowl. And there's a whole lot of discussion on that one. And boy, we could chop this one up for a very long time. Nonetheless, their path towards repeating in the conference will be a little bit tougher in this coming season. And the Lions have, of course, their best chance to reach the Super Bowl in decades, while the Philadelphia Eagles reloaded their roster in order to make another Super Bowl run of their own. The Packers can't be omitted from the conversation either after their surprising 2023 season as well. Simply put, the NFC will be fun to watch this season for a lot of reasons. Now, the bigger question is, what was the best offseason move for each team in the NFC to set itself up for a potential postseason run in 2024 or beyond? And what was the best offseason move for each Super Bowl contender in the conference that each one has made? So, I want you to think about that for a moment and think about the scarcity of talent, right? And then think about the scarcity of draft picks. So, put all that together, put it in a blender, then you say, what divisions do they play and what path do they have to go through, right? So the NFC North, we think about the Bears, Packers, Lions, and the Vikings. And you wonder who is going to be the leader. Everyone says it's going to be Detroit. I'm not so sure of that. Right? So, let's think about last place. Last place is easy because that would likely be the Minnesota Vikings. They haven't really done too terribly much. We're going to get to them in a minute. And honestly, I'm not really sure that the Vikings with their moves have really helped themselves in any way. That's the bigger question is. So if you look at the moves that they've made versus everybody else in the division, you say, well, it's no wonder that the Vikings likely will be in last place. It certainly isn't going to be the Bears. Not just because they added some players, but it's because the Vikings didn't really do enough. So that's really what we're after here. And when you think about the Detroit Lions, you say, well, did they get better? Yeah, they probably did get better. They did get better. The Bears got significantly better, and the Packers, I'm not so sure they got better, but they were already a decent squad. So the bigger question lies with who has the easiest path. And so we think about the value, and the value of picks. It's just like if you're a card collector, the value and scarcity of picks and the schedule, how the schedule plays out. They all going to play the same non-conference schedule for the most part. And it's, again, based on, think about demand. Demand for cards. Demands for sports cards, right? Because I like a sports card, so baseball, football, basketball, hockey, even comic cards, whatever. And you think of the value and scarcity and the demand for an uncirculated card, for example. It's very, very, very rare. So the bigger question is, what is the population? Well, the population of draft picks is actually quite low. So when we think of draft picks, and we also think of the teams in which they have to fight against, well, certain teams have positioned themselves better, right? So that is honestly the real linchpin of this whole thing. So value and scarcity of draft picks is demand driven. So therefore, overall value is based on all of those pieces. Now, if you can follow along with that argument, you'll understand where we're going with this. And honestly, public opinion has nothing to do with it because it's all about what is going on in the league. So when we think of these teams, let's just start with, we'll get back to the NFC North in just a moment here. Let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals, of course, they drafted Marvin Harrison at number 4, and the Cardinals didn't really have to trade up to land the best player in the draft. He arguably is the best player in the draft, but they didn't have to trade down to stockpile picks either. So actually, they did pretty darn good, and Harrison fell right into the Cardinals' lap at number 4 overall. And Arizona has the number 1 wide receiver for Kyler Murray, which was sorely lacking in the season, well, last year. So at the end of the day, Harrison is a game changer at wide receiver and a touchdown threat for sure. 28 is the most in an FBS over the last couple seasons and will instantly make an offense better. But remember, the Cardinals didn't have a wideout that had over 600 receiving yards last season. Now that's pretty crappy. Now the Atlanta Falcons are kind of a mystery. I say Falcons, people say Falcons, call them what you will. But the reality is they hired Zach Robinson as their offensive coordinator. They signed Kirk Cousins, which I just don't understand, and adding more pass catchers certainly help Atlanta in their pursuit for playoffs. But Robinson is the key towards the Falcons taking the next step. And Atlanta has the second lowest pass play percentage in the NFL over the last couple of seasons, which will change with Robinson's play calling. And of course, he was the Rams passing coordinator over the last couple of seasons, as the Rams threw the ball about 60% of the time over that stretch. And the Rams also run 11 personnel, 92.7% of the time, the highest in the NFL by 15% over the next highest team over the last couple of years. So, look, there's a reason why the Falcons traded for Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore is one of those great Swiss Army knives, and signed Darnell Mooney. And of course, to help out Kirk Cousins in the passing game. But they plan to use the 3 receivers on the field at all times, giving Kyle Pitts, who's better lined up in the slot as at a tight end, and Drake London some help in this new offense. And the Falcons are going to look a little bit different And of course, with their formations, and they should score some points, but Robinson could take this next hot commodity in the head coaching hiring process. Now, we don't really know what's going to happen with that, but what we do know is the Carolina Panthers hired David Canales as the head coach, and the Panthers are the first team in the NFL history with 7 head coaches in 6 seasons. Now, Bryce Young was last in yards per attempt, 5.5, and a passer rating of a 73.7, which isn't bad, ranking dead last among qualified quarterbacks, as he was the number 1 pick in the prior year. But Canales might be the one coach that can save this Titanic from sinking. And of course, known for getting Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield to career years in consecutive seasons, the Panthers are banking on Canales to do the same with Bryce Young as he heads into year number 2. And of course, both Smith and Mayfield had career highs in passing and passing touchdowns in their seasons under Canales, and earning long-term extensions and bringing stability back to the quarterback position for those franchises. And of course, the Panthers are stuck with Young, who gets to spend the whole offseason under Canales' tutelage. And of course, Carolina may not be a contender in 2024, but good season from Young. A good season from Young would go a long way towards the Carolina Panthers' future. But anyway, folks, we're going to get back to this in just a few minutes here on the Sports Circus. We're going to head right back in for the NFL and their picks and how they bettered themselves in the offseasons. We're going to come right back with the Chicago Bears back here in just a few minutes on the Circus. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935. Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sizzling dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UppercutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UppercutChops.com.
back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, make sure you check out TheSportsCircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, which are a podcast, which can be found on all podcast platforms, whether it's Apple or Amazon or Audible or Spotify or Pandora or Google. Folks, we're everywhere. You can't get away from us. Also, make sure you check out the partners page. One of the partners been with us for a very long time is the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Yes. All right, and welcome back to everybody. Tuning in on our affiliates from coast to coast, including our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the New York Yankees and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome into everybody that's over in, we're going to go right to Auburn, Alabama, because we can with War Eagle. We're going to go ahead and welcome everybody in on WAUD, that's home of the Atlanta Braves, as well as over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM, plus all our other affiliates, the other 212 from coast to coast that have access to this particular program. And, of course, all of our television affiliates, Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, and WOW Cable Television, as well as Hotel TV in all Nielsen-rated markets. All right, picking back up in this discussion with the best moves by each NFC team in the offseason. We left off with the Panthers, and we're going right to the Chicago Bears. Of course, the Bears always get a nice round of applause here. Yes! Then, of course, having the number 1 pick, Caleb Williams, and the number 9 pick, Rome Odunze, was the highlight of the Bears offseason. Never mind the fact that they traded for Keenan Allen from the LA Chargers. Of course, I always want to call them the San Diego Superchargers. Nonetheless, we want to call them the Chargers anyway, but guess what? The Bears got well very quickly on the offensive side of the ball. Bigger question is, can they protect the quarterback? And, of course, with the Bears having a franchise quarterback in Williams, giving him one of the most valuable and reliable veteran receivers in the league over the last decade is certainly going to that's going to do real big things for the Bears. It's going to take a lot of pressure off them. In fact, the Bears parted ways with a 4th-round pick for Keenan Allen, who has 5 seasons of 100-plus receptions in his career, tied for 3rd most in NFL history. And Allen is coming off a season which he averaged a career high in receiving yards per game at 95.6 yards per game, and has 7 straight seasons with 70-plus receiving yards per game. That's pretty good stuff. And having a receiver like Allen is exactly what Caleb Williams needed. And let's face it, they have the trust in getting rid of the ball very quickly in the first year. Look, he's going to be chased all over the field, but adding Rome Odunze, a big wideout from the University of Washington, and, of course, DJ Moore to the mix, and Williams is set up for a massive rookie year throwing the ball. So the only thing the Bears are going to have to really deal with is, I would imagine, that they're going to be in a position where they're going to have to protect the blind side. And more importantly, they're going to have to keep Caleb Williams in the pocket, because he is good outside the pocket, but that's where your quarterback gets hurt. And I wouldn't necessarily want to see Caleb Williams running around in the backfield like Patrick Mahomes does, or some of the other quarterbacks do, Kyler Murray, for example. I don't want to see him running around. I want to see him play the quarterback position, stay in the pocket, do what he's supposed to do, and I think he'll be very productive. I really think he's going to be productive. And if the Bears stick with this, they're going to probably be a 10-7 team. I don't expect them to win 12, 13 games. It's just not in the cards. Defensively, they're probably going to steal 3 or 4 games. And, of course, I believe the offense is going to get them some W's as well. So we'll see. The Bears are going to be a very interesting team to watch, but they really made some good moves. And, of course, we're going to shift over to Jerry's world and the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, that always deserves a chorus of boos from our anti-Dallas Cowboys fans. Anyway, they drafted Tyler Guyton in the 1st round, Cooper Beebe in the 3rd round, and the Cowboys didn't do much in the offseason. In fact, neither Dak Prescott or CeeDee Lamb or Micah Parsons received a contract extension, and free agency was highlighted by signing Ezekiel Elliott back and signing Eric Kendricks. Not really sure about this, but nonetheless, getting Guyton in the first round and Beebe in the third round were excellent moves by the Cowboys, adding young talent on an offensive line that lost Tyron Smith and Tyler Biadasz. So Guyton could start at left tackle, and the Cowboys could keep Tyler Smith inside, while Beebe has a long-term future at guard or could challenge for the starting center job this year. But the Cowboys typically draft well and played it smart by adding young talent in the trenches, helped this draft as a very deep one on the offensive line. So they actually did quite well. Now, the Detroit Lions, as we were talking about with the NFC North just a little bit ago, and I have to tell you that the Detroit Lions, when you look at them, you say, well, did they really do well? Well, look, they made the championship game, everybody knows, for the first time since 91, and having a bunch of young players that are built for a deep playoff run is a good thing. And the Lions wasted no time getting their young core signed to contract extensions as well. That's really good stuff. And of course, you look at Sewell, earned $112 million extension, $20 million a year, which to me is just insane. And of course, St. Brown got a $120 million extension, $30 million a year. Seems like they're just printing money over there. The Lions also committed to Jared Goff by giving him $212 million over 4 years, $53 million a year to me, which is complete and utter robbery. Show me the money! And honestly, folks, I don't get it. I really don't get it. When you look at the money that they're spending, you kind of scratch your head and say, well, wait a minute, what the heck are we doing here? I mean, look, they say, well, there's a Super Bowl window in Detroit, and their commitment to Goff, St. John, and Sewell demonstrates that. I agree. But what about bad decision-making? I mean, look, Dan Campbell, in my opinion, cost the Detroit Lions going to the Super Bowl. How do you not go up by 3 scores on the road by kicking a field goal? That's exactly what you're supposed to do, and it's exactly what they didn't do. Bad decision-making is what cost the Packers. In fact, they should have docked Dan Campbell a lot of money for making bad decisions and essentially preventing his team from going to the Super Bowl. It's pretty embarrassing. Now, sticking with the NFC North, let's look at the Green Bay Packers. They signed Xavier McKinney, and the Packers needed a revamp at the safety position after a horrific 2023, targeting arguably the top safety on the free agency market in McKinney, and Green Bay was able to land him and outbid several teams by giving him a 4-year, $68 million deal. The money they're giving away to these people is lunacy, but whatever. They just keep printing money because the sponsors just keep throwing money at them. That's all TV money. And McKinney played every snap last season, one of just 2 players to accomplish that in the league. In fact, he allowed 41.4% passer rating and coverage and didn't allow a passing touchdown last year, and an immense upgrade over what the Packers had at the safety position last year. So they're actually doing it right, which frustrates me as a Bears guy. Nonetheless, McKinney and rookie Javon Bullard will be a nice tandem for Green Bay next season. So let's shift over to the West and look at the Rams. They signed Cameron Curl. As a matter of fact, the Rams had a few candidates for this honor in a strong offseason, but getting Curl for 2 years at $8.75 million was a bargain for one of the underrated safeties in the market. And not only can Curl play both safety positions, but he also plays the hybrid safety linebacker role in certain packages as well. In fact, Curl was part of the worst pass defense in the league with Washington, so that may have affected his market value in the first place. But the Rams have a player that has a knack for finding the football and, of course, making clean tackles as well. So when you think about that, you say, well, wait a minute. Did they do themselves well? It sure seems like it. And, of course, Chris Shula should have fun using Curl in multiple packages. Now, we did talk about the Minnesota Vikings briefly in the NFC North, and I think the Vikings are going to come in last. And, of course, they drafted Dallas Turner at number 17 overall. They had 2 first-round picks in the draft, and the first getting all the headlines, of course, with J.J. McCarthy. And the immediate contributor may be Turner, though, drafted. That's Dallas Turner, who fell all the way down to 17. But not only will Turner be in a Brian Flores defense, but he'll line up on the same defensive line with Jonathan Greenard. And that's an opportunity for Turner to have a high-pressure rate immediately, that 20% pressure rate last year. So a Flores team rushed 3 or fewer players most of the time in the NFL, 131 plays, and rushed 5 or more players, the most the NFL has had since, in 341 plays. Those are an opportunity there for Turner to get a high number of sacks in 1 year. But is that going to, I don't know, is that really going to drive? Is that going to really drive this team? I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. And I just kind of scratch my head and say, well, wait a minute. What's going to happen with this club? Because they seem to have a conundrum on the offensive side of the ball, and we don't really know what they're going to be capable of. But nonetheless, moving on. Quickly, we're going to cover the New Orleans Saints, or where they're going to go to break here. Now, the Saints have been limited with their salary cap issues, so they had made a good pick in the first round. And good news for the Saints is that this was a good draft for offensive tackles. In fact, with the health of Ryan Ramczyk in question, Fuoga could slide in at right tackle. Now, remember, they drafted him in the first round. And, well, let's face it, the Saints arguably landed the best run-blocking lineman in the draft, who can also start week 1 at the guard position. I mean, they're going to have some options over there with Fuoga, but at the end of the day, you look and see what they can do and what they can't do, and I think that they've kind of limited themselves to a particular degree. So they're sort of a mystery in the Saints, but then again, they play in a very weak NFC South, so we'll have to see what happens there. We're going to come back from break here in just a few minutes on the Sports Circus. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere. I'm your Ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus TheSportsCircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello, Americans. It's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
The old way of living with diabetes is a pain. You've got to remember to do your testing and always need to stick your fingers to test your blood sugar. The new way to live your life with diabetes is with a continuous glucose monitor. Apply a discrete sensor on your body, and it continuously monitors your glucose levels, helping you spend more time in range and freeing you from painful finger sticks. If you are living with type 1 or type 2 diabetes and you use insulin or have had hypoglycemic events, you might be eligible for a CGM through your insurance benefits. U.S. Med partners with over 500 private insurance companies and Medicare. We offer free shipping, 90-day supplies, and we bill your insurance. Call us today for a free benefits check.
800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. That's 800-659-7805.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the American Business Trust Company, helping companies with strategy, sales and marketing, capital resources, and establishing companies with physical locations or on the internet. For more information, contact the American Business Trust Company at 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935 for the American Business Trust Company. All right. All right, welcome back to everybody on TV and radio. Everybody streaming as well on social media. Thanks for joining us. Big hello to our friends over on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Of course, make sure you check them out. Go to Facebook and just type in Chicago Food Favorites. Post your favorite foods. Check out your best restaurants over there. And in fact, there's lots of great recipes over there too. Whether you're cooking great dishes or making desserts, cookies, cakes, whatever the hell it is, make sure you like, subscribe, follow Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right, picking up where we left off in the National Football League on the best moves by each NFC team this offseason. Of course, brought to you by CBS Sports, this particular one. Now, they say the New York Giants, well, they say give a little bit of credit to them. Of course, you know, they traded for Brian Burns, and give the Giants credit for finding a new way to get Burns without paying a premium. And the Giants only gave up a 2024 second rounder and a 2025 fifth rounder to get him, creating one of the best pass rushing units in football with Burns and Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. So that's actually a pretty good trio right there. And the Giants finished 29th in pressure rate at 31.7 last season. So getting Burns, signing him to a 5-year, $130 million deal is a huge move, but it's an enormous financial windfall for him. $30 million a year. Think about this, folks. What did these players make 30, 40 years ago? They're making $100,000. Not $30 million per season. Crazy. Nonetheless, again, it's all about money this time. Just keep printing money, and that's what it seems to be. Anyway, Burns is also coming off a season which he finished with 40 pressures, 8 sacks, 18 quarterback hits, and a pressure rate of 11.1%, numbers which should go up by playing with Thibodeau and with Lawrence. And Burns could, of course, be in line for a massive season. You know, the interesting thing, for a while, you know, we had Al Bubba Baker, the quarterback breaker and the rib maker, on our show as our football guy. And he holds the single-season sack record with 23 over Michael Strahan's 22.5. But the reality is, and he did that as a rookie, imagine a guy like Al Baker. What about our very good friend, our very dear friend, Leonard Marshall with the New York Football Giants? Imagine what Leonard would have been paid in today's time. Imagine what his line mate, Lawrence Taylor, would have been paid in today's time. What about Chicago Bears' Richard Dent? What about Dan Hampton? And what about all those other great players? What about Jim Jeffcoat? Jim Jeffcoat, friend of the Sports Circus, 110 sacks in the National Football League. Still not a Hall of Famer, but has 2 Super Bowls. What about Larry Bubba Cole? Another guy with scores and scores of sacks. This is before the sack stat was actually available. And you wonder what these guys would have got paid in today's time. And how about the fact that it's the older guys that have paved the way for the newer guys? And, of course, our very dear friend, Uncle Bob, and that would be Bob Grant, former Super Bowl champion from the Baltimore Colts, passed away recently. And guys like Bob, not only a wonderful human, but it's guys like him that brought integration in through Wake Forest University. And it was guys like Bob and all those other greats that made all this possible. And how the National Football League doesn't really take care of the older guys is a complete embarrassment to the league, to the ownership, and everything else that surrounds it. How do you not take care of the guys that made all this stuff possible? And frankly, I'm terribly embarrassed for the National Football League for throwing this kind of money around and not taking care of the guys that made all this stuff possible in the first place. So maybe the NFL will listen. Maybe Roger Goodell will just, instead of being paid to stay out of the way, in my opinion, maybe it'll actually make something happen for the older guys, the pre-93 collective bargaining guys that didn't really make a bunch of money. Imagine what those guys would have made in today's time. Imagine a guy like Walter Payton. What would Walter Payton have been worth? The best back in the history of the National Football League. Imagine if Walter Payton had a line like Emmitt Smith did in Dallas, and he didn't. Walter had to run over everybody. He had to grab him by the face mask and throw him down. And the reality is, you take a guy like Walter Payton in today's time, Walter would probably be making $70 million a year in today's time. And what did he make in his career? I don't know. I'm going to guess he probably made a couple of $1 million or so, maybe $2 or $3 million. I don't know. But reality is, they played every game. They played through pain. They played through pills. They played through everything. They didn't have, we're going to sit this game out. No. You get your ass out there and you play. And in today's time, throwing this money around to players that, I can't say they don't deserve it, but players that would be very much in the middle in salary range from back in the day, would be getting paid X dollars and now being paid tens of millions of dollars in today's time. Why? Because of these blasted TV contracts. And basically, they priced the fans right out of the game. And here's another one. We're going to go over to Philadelphia. We're going to stick with the East. And you think of the Eagles. Yeah, they hired Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator. We get all that stuff. But notorious, the city of Philadelphia, notorious losers year in and year out. They've lost the most professional sports games in the history of professional sports, that being the city of Philadelphia. And just because they made some moves doesn't mean that they're going to go to a Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. It doesn't even matter. Because remember, the Eagles fans in the first place, they seem, better yet, it's the fans of Philadelphia, and I know this from firsthand experience, they seem to hate everything. They boo Santa Claus. They throw snowballs at Santa Claus. They boo everybody. Even if they win, it doesn't seem like they're satisfied. City of Brotherly Love, my ass. I don't seem to understand it. Anyway, the Eagles had, according to CBS Sports, they had one of the worst defenses in the National Football League last year, leading to a change in their defensive coordinator immediately after the year ended. And, of course, they had Fangio fall into their lap after Fangio and the Dolphins mutually agreed to part ways, which was a huge mistake by the Dolphins. Anyway, the communication issues on the defense are in the past, and Fangio's hard coaching style has brought accountability back to the Eagles, according to CBS Sports. I'm not really sure about that. So adding C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Bryce Huff, Devin White, Quinion Mitchell, and Cooper DeJean as the highlight defensive moves has helped Philadelphia in revamping a defense. And the Eagles' defense was 30th in points allowed per season last year and 31st in yards allowed per possession. Now, that's pretty important. In fact, they were 31st in pass touchdowns allowed and pass yards per game allowed, 252 per game. And this defense can't be any worse under Fangio, should it be. So there's not going to be a ton of pressure on him. But the problem is when you go into a new system, you start to play a system, for example, these players may not necessarily know. So you think about adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. Well, these 5 guys, they have to learn a playbook. And it takes months and months and months to learn a playbook. Then they've got to have chemistry. They've got to know where each other is on top of it on the field. There's a lot going on here. And remember, all these guys come from different systems. So learning the system is half the battle. Learning the players that you're playing with is another battle. But then creating chemistry and not ill will is another battle. Nobody really talks about this stuff, so I think the Eagles are still going to be in trouble. Now, the 49ers, they started Leonard Floyd, and of course, that's their big move and their best move by each NFC team in the offseason. And the 49ers decided to move on from Chase Young this offseason in favor of Floyd, who is 31 and still one of the most productive pass rushers in football. I think that was a mistake by moving on from Chase Young. Anyway, Floyd is one of 3 players with 9+ sacks in each of the last 4 seasons. Big deal. They're making 9 sacks sound like it's the best. And you go back to Al Baker with 23 sacks, followed up by a great sophomore season with, about 20 sacks, whatever the hell it was. And this is back in the day in a non-passing league. So imagine that. Imagine those guys playing today. Anyway, so you think about the 49ers With Nick Bosa on the other end, the opportunities will be there for Floyd to go get the quarterback. And paying a 31-year-old pass rusher, of course, can be risky, but Floyd is a smart investment, according to CBS Sports, for being a number 2 pass rusher on a defensive line with Bosa and Hargrave. And the 49ers have a very good investment in signing Floyd, according to them, and the best limited moves they've made early in free agency. So I'm not so sure that the 49ers really needed to make a lot of moves. I really think they made a mistake by not keeping Young, but at the end of the day, remember, they got him late in the season. And for him to learn a system, they say go get the ball. It's the same thing. It's not the same thing because the defensive scheme the defensive scheme is different from team to team per se. And so the problem is, did they give Chase Young enough time? I don't believe they did. And so honestly, I think the 49ers made a big mistake. We'll see. We're going to come back with the Seahawks, and we're going to finish up this and jump into something else right here on the Sports Circus. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, make sure you check out TheSportsCircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, recorded shows, and our podcasts, which actually are full recorded shows. We don't do a podcast. We do a regular live television or radio show. It just happens to be on podcast platforms. All right. Also, make sure you check out the partners. Lots of those on the Sports Circus. And, of course, one of our favorites is Al's Number One Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. And, folks, it's different from a Philly cheesesteak. An Italian beef sandwich is a whole different animal. In case you've never had one, you're really missing out. If you're not in Chicagoland right now, you can actually go to goldbelly.com. That's goldbelly.com and type in Al's Beef. Pick up a tub. Listen, I don't get paid anything for saying this. I'm just telling you because I dig it. It's really good stuff. They've been around since 1938. They are the original Italian beef sandwich. Check them out also at alsbeef.com. Of course, they get an astounding round of applause. It's a personal favorite. And everybody on Chicago Food Favorites that happens to be listening in on Facebook, thanks for joining us, along with all of our listeners on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, all of our independents. There's about 215 stations that have access to this show. Great stuff. And, of course, everybody on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, and Time Warner Cable Television and Hotel TV in over 500,000 rooms, gaining about 4 million impressions per hour. Those are huge numbers. And, yes, I'm going to keep hitting the applause button just because I can. All right. Now, the final bit of this CBS Sports best move by each NFC team, we're going to finish up with our last three teams, and that being the Seattle Seahawks, re-signing Leonard Williams. And, of course, getting Williams back to Seattle appeared to be a priority, and, in fact, they're number one for the Seahawks, making sure they have their trade deadline acquisition coach under Mike Macdonald for 2024 and beyond. And clearly Seattle has a vision of Williams in Macdonald's defense, similar to how Justin Madubuike and was used with the Baltimore Ravens. So, Williams had 4 sacks, 32 pressures, 11 quarterback hits, with a 12.1 percentage of pressure rate in 10 games, being an impactful player, of course, on the interior the moment he put on Seattle's uniform. And, of course, they were able to sign Williams to a 3-year, another ridiculous contract of $64.5 million. That's just, I'm sorry, folks, $18 million a season. It's lunacy. He doesn't even have that many quarterback sacks per season. Doesn't have 18. Well, maybe you give him, I don't know, $500,000 per sack. I have no idea. All I know is the numbers are stupid. Anyway, that amount, which appears to be, allegedly, according to CBS Sports, a great investment, based on how McDonald and Aiden Durge's defense favors interior defensive linemen. I'm sorry, but this whole thing, to me, it's just lunacy. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they re-signed Baker Mayfield, which, of course, is a real nice pick, and they re-signed Mike Evans. I like what they've done over there. So that's in the offseason. Mayfield and Evans were actually tied together in the offseason. If Evans were to sign elsewhere, a good chance Mayfield would leave Tampa as well. And if Mayfield signed elsewhere, Evans would likely go to leave too. So the Buccaneers were able to sign both, getting Mayfield to re-sign 3 years, $100 million. And Evans 2 years, $41 million. Not only did both deals help out Tampa in the short run, but Mayfield was at his best when throwing to Evans last year, compiling 111.6 passer rating. And look, those two, yeah, it worked out good. And Mayfield, I hate to say it, but Mayfield, he earned it. And Mayfield, actually, it's about time he got paid because the guy is a lunch pail guy. He's been in multiple systems under multiple quarterback coaches, offensive coordinators, and it's about time Mayfield actually got his. Good for him. Now, Tampa needed both of those guys back to have a shot at winning the NFC South for the 4th consecutive year. Yet they'll be in the playoffs, well, better yet, in the mix, to finding a way to keeping both players back on the roster. Last but not least is the Washington Commanders. And, of course, as in our administration, Washington being in last place, well, guess what? It seems like that administration, as awful as it is, should be in last place. Oh, and by the way, it sure seems that they're in last place in the first place. Anyway, the Commanders, of course, I always want to call them the Redskins. The Commanders are going to set an NFL record of having a different quarterback starting week 1 for 8 consecutive seasons. And Jaden Daniels, the number 2 overall pick in the draft, should be the starting week 1 quarterback at least for 8 straight seasons in the Commanders uniform, which to me is completely laughable because Jaden Daniels, in my opinion, is severely overrated. Should have never won the Heisman Trophy. As a matter of fact, Bo Nix should have won the Heisman Trophy. He had the best numbers across the board. And, of course, Denver got a steal with him. Anyway, Washington was aggressive in the offseason, but Daniel is allegedly the franchise quarterback this organization hasn't possessed in decades. Okay. And Daniels is the only player to lead FBS in yards per attempt and yards per rush over the last 60 years, showcasing his dual talent, dual threat ability in the position. And he also has 19 passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions and passes that went for 25 yards in the air or more, providing, of course, that he has a good deep ball as well. The problem is that's only college. The guy hasn't thrown one professional football pass yet. So let's give this guy the job, and he's unproven. That's ridiculous. So the Commanders had 12 different starting quarterbacks since the start of the 2018 season, which may have finally got it right, as they say, with Daniels as the franchise is turning a corner to rebuild this organization. These guys stink. I'm sorry, but I don't see how the Commanders do anything but end up in last place anyway. So those guys, boy, it is a very tough, bumpy road for the Washington Commanders. And I don't see anything significant coming from this organization. I really don't. And if they think Daniels is the be-all, end-all savior of this organization, Doug Williams and company better keep on searching, because it is going to be one bumpy road to play in the National Football League this season. In case you're keeping score, the other teams got better. Philadelphia got better. The Giants got better. Oh, and by the way, the Cowboys are a pretty good squad as well. So I ask you, the listener, where is the weakness? Oh, that's right. The weakness is really clear. It's in the NFC East, in the alleged Washington Commanders in the first place. So it will be a very long season. I think those guys are going to be very hard-pressed to win, I don't know, 4 or 5 games? And that's really how it goes. All right, let's shift over to the NBA real quick here, because with the NBA, not really a big surprise, but Adam Silver teases 3 potential NBA expansion cities. Now, so of course, some cities are certainly interested in hearing about this, and of course, this originally appeared on NBC Sports Boston. Now, according to them, the Celtics and Mavs outlasted 28 other teams to reach the NBA Finals, and the number may increase in a very near future. However, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver joined NBC Sports Boston, the Celtics pregame at TD Gardens ahead of Game 2 of the NBA Finals, and confirmed the league will look at the possibility of expanding from its 30 current teams after it finalizes its new media rights deal. Oh, and what does that say?
Show me the money!
Show me the money. And of course, Silver told co-host Tom Giles, Eddie House, and Brian Scalabrine, quote, "We have to understand what our long-term media relationships are before we look to expansion. We're in the process of wrapping up those deals right now. And they're going to be long-term deals. I'm hoping we're not done yet. But they'll be successful in terms of generating more money for the league and the teams. And then we'll be in a position to look at expansion," close quote. So the NBA's current media rights deal expires after next season, and Silver said the league hoped to finalize new long-term agreements in the, quote, relative near term, close quote. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, the NBA is closing in on deals with NBC, ESPN, and Amazon, totaling about $76 billion over the next 11 years. Now, while Silver insisted the league adding teams isn't a given, it would be a natural step to consider the influx of money from the potential media rights deals and the fact that Two other pro sports leagues, the NFL and NHL, already have 32 teams. Now, Silver said, quote, "It's not preordained that we will expand. I've said it before, you've got to look at dilution, possibly of talent, but there's so much great basketball being played around the world." Really? Okay, I don't really believe that one. All right, Adam. Look, I'm a Duke guy just like you, but I don't believe that one. You sell that crazy to somebody else. We're all stocked up here. I don't think he says, he continues with, I don't think there's any doubt that over time this league can sustain 2 more teams, and there's interest in that market. So once we finish our media deal, we'll turn the attention to that, close quote. So which cities would be in the running to add expansion? I think it's quite obvious which teams. Now, they're both going to have to be in the same conference. They're both going to have to be in the Western Conference. And, of course, Silver had confirmed, quote, "There's been some discussion about going back to Seattle potentially, and Las Vegas, no doubt, is very interested in a team. Mexico City one day." But there's a lot of other U.S. cities and Canadian cities, frankly, that have reached out to us to tell us they'd be interested, close quote. Now, look, Vegas is going to get one. Now, I've already talked with the leadership here in this state and in Las Vegas. Those are personal contacts of mine, and I know Las Vegas is getting it. In fact, I even know who's building the stadium in which the team will play. So believe me, folks, it's happening. That stadium is going to happen for those here in Las Vegas, right over by the Wet and Wild Old Park, right next to the Sahara on Las Vegas Boulevard. It'll front either Las Vegas Boulevard and Paradise Road, but it'll be at the north end of the Strip on the other side of the old Riviera, and what's basically is the Fontainebleau. So between the Fontainebleau and the Sahara is where the stadium will be built, next to the Convention Center's property. And so that's the old Riviera property. But nonetheless, that's what's going to happen there. And, of course, Seattle and Las Vegas have been long rumored to be the league's next 2 expansion cities. Of course, when they had the Sonics were a really good team with big fan support, but at the end of the day, the ownership didn't support them. So while Silver had suggested on multiple occasions the NBA is looking to add another international team outside of Toronto, Mexico City, guess what? You're going to have to wait. It ain't going to happen. The league has played at least one regular season game in Mexico City every season since the 16-17 season, with the exception of the pandemic year. So perhaps that would be the NBA's next frontier after welcoming in Seattle and Las Vegas. So folks, basically you heard it there. That's the cities that is going to be getting those new franchises. Vegas for sure, likely Seattle. That's going to do it for today's show. I'm your Ringmaster Sal right here on the Sports Circus. We'll see you in about 23 hours on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.